Yo, 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 this is your co host, Dervin with Synonyms of Sound.
And this is your second co-host, Tony. And I'd like to introduce Janel Young. Janel, how's it going today?
Hey guys, it's going pretty good.
Awesome, awesome. I love the two pieces of art behind you. Since, we are doing a video interview, could you just give us a little bit about those two pieces? I think it's very powerful and profound before we start from the real important stuff.
Absolutely. The pieces behind me, it's a pair that I call The Difference Between You and Me. And man, it's essentially a police brutality piece. It's a really heavy piece, but a lot of people are drawn to it because kind of on one hand, there's like this familiar character that is Captain America, and it's a white guy in his Captain America uniform t-shirt. And then on the other side is unfortunately what we know as, a black man who, instead of having that star in the middle of his chest, has a target on his chest. It's one of my most well-known pieces of art, and I finally have room for like the really big ones. They've been to a few showings and exhibits and things like that, and people are, usually struck by them. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, thank you.
It was the first thing I noticed when you came on. I was like, oh, wow, it's a good piece.
The one thing about being a painter is when you don't have room for things, you get to hang them in your own house.
I love it. I guess to our guests, we're going to do something a little different than normal, but I want to quickly just touch on this because in an article I read that was written with you being interviewed, you mentioned that for some reason when it comes to Black artists and, when they're like expressing creativity, it always needs to be very profound. It needs to be super deep in some sense. Could we talk a little bit about that as a whole? Like, I know you mentioned the word whimsical, but can you talk a little bit about that in relation to that piece and this in general of like the art industry as a whole?
Absolutely. So, I tell people all the time that as an artist, like these pieces are important, like the heavy ones, they definitely are, and there's a place for them. But as the person creating it, like you have no idea what place that's like deep and dark we have to go to create something like that and to bring it to the world. And so you can't stay there. Like you got to start creating other things that make you happy and bring a little bit more joy to you, that are a little lighter. But the thing is that in the art world in general, there's way more opportunity for white artists to be whimsical or to not even consider, something having to be profound. There's a lot more white artists who are abstract painters than Black people. Black artists, we feel like a lot of times, we have to carry something on our shoulders, and that we have to represent for all of our people, and that includes their struggles, right? And so it sometimes can just be a little bit more difficult because we're feeling like we have to prove something. And that's where the profound part kind of comes in. But I get very excited when I see, something that's just like an abstract piece where I'm like, a Black person made this? That means they were just doing their thing. They were just, like this is just what they wanted to make. It didn't necessarily have a message. It didn't necessarily like need to mean something. I think we should be able to have those opportunities as well.
Got it. It makes sense. It's like I'm gonna try to use two different not metaphors but like concepts. It's like for poetry, when it's a Black poet, it's always very deep and like a lot of pain and struggle behind it. It's never really like very light and like, I'm gonna use your word again, whimsical from that perspective. I feel like if you're seeing a Black poet, he needs to come with like the knowledge, the pain, and everything else. Do you feel that's similar to art sometimes?
Absolutely.
That automatic, like put in a bucket kind of thing?
Absolutely. And part of that is also because I'm a public artist, like I'm not always doing commission work that might end up being more whimsical, that's like just for a person and their family or something like that. Like I'm doing things that are out in the world, like on the streets and downtown and in these other places. So part of that is also just the pressure I think we put on ourselves. Like, I have this platform. Am I supposed to do something really big with it? And if so, what is that thing? Right? Like, what responsibility do I have? But sometimes I have to take a step back and like really think about, does a white artist ever think like what message, what profound thing do I have to do, or who's standing on my shoulders? Like sometimes I just don't think they have those internal conversations. And that's why they're able to just create a little bit more freely, which is a privilege.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that.
So I was reading a couple of articles and saw that you had done your first mural when you were 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I'd love to I'd love to learn more about that. Just, I guess, how that come to fruition. I mean, how do you make the transition from, a canvas to, the side of a building that it's at so young, like that, the scale there, it's pretty impressive.
I have to give credit to like my parents and my grandparents for that one. My grandmother at her church, they were part of another organization who was doing a project where they wanted youth to be involved in the arts and creating a mural for the Black and White reunion is what they called it. And so it was all about like community and unity. And I think it was right place, right time, and whatever they had to do to register me, I don't know. So I worked with some other kids, but there were also some adult mentors and artists. And of course, I was too young to know at the time, like, what all this really meant. I was just like, yeah, I'm going to show up, and I love to draw, and I love to, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, yeah,
I get it.
I would love to be part of this. But I recently, in the past couple of years, have like asked my mom and my grandma about that experience to give me more details, because I was just too young to remember. And what I got out of that was, even though it started out with a large group of kids, when it came down to it, like I think we met maybe once a week or something like that, a lot of them weren't showing up. So then it was just like me and like this artist who was my mentor and credits me for being a large part in coming up with the concept of the mural and then painting most of it. Like, he helped us outline it. And I think I have some pictures of that, like on my website, some of my earliest,
so
Kodak.
were you pushing yourself to like continue to show up? Because at 6 to 7, like you lose interest pretty quick. Well, and I'm assuming a mural is a lot of work. So I'm surprised that you were like so committed to keep showing up.
Yeah, I really don't know, but I've always been the type of kid who's like, I'm going to start what I finish. Like, I was just very determined in that way. And I think I still am. So I don't know. Maybe I really was just having a good time. I'm really not sure. Or maybe my grandma was like, well, this is what we plan to do today. So that's where we're going. Not sure which one it was. But I mean, that was my first real like introduction to that type of art. But beyond that, I did end up going to like an art camp one summer. It was between, I think, 4th and 5th grade. And then the following year, I applied to get into the Creative and Performing Arts Middle School, which is where I ended up going and majoring in visual arts for 3 years. And that's when I really started getting into painting. Because before that, I was mostly drawing, sketching. I did maybe like pastels, charcoal, stuff like that. But that's when I really, really started painting. And I was selected to be on a mural team of 7th graders. And we did another like group project where we came up with the concept, and then we went into a building and painted for like some senior citizens. And like,
did people show up this time?
What'd you say?
Did people show up this time? Like the other team members?
Well, we had to, because they took us out of school to be there. Like, we were on a van.
Got it.
There. So I don't think anybody was really complaining about that. And we got like some little lunch and little snacks. So I think we were good.
Awesome. Cool.
But yeah, I mean, that was the push that got me into painting and into murals and like understanding what that really meant.
Awesome.
Should I go into more detail, Durbin, about, I mean, I feel like I only answered part of your question. I don't know if we got to like walls, but
I mean, if you'd like, it seems like, I don't know, I have a big appreciation for street art. Just growing up in the Queens area, Brooklyn, a lot of street art in Brooklyn. I guess, what would you say was the best city you've done a mural in?
ooh,
And I hope I don't make anyone from Pittsburgh angry.
I was about to say like she's just by default to say Pittsburgh, but you can be honest.
the best city. I mean, but what makes it? Yikes. Well, I'll say this. I have so much love for all the murals I did in New York because most of them were group projects. Like most of them were group murals where I was hired to like assist another artist. And like I met so many great artists that way. And it really opened my eyes to like different techniques and I was able to learn from people and vice versa. And I don't think I would necessarily be the type of artist that I am now if I didn't have that experience first. Very much the hustle and the grind of like, okay, you are going to be a studio manager, like, and for people who don't know what that means, essentially, like there might be a mural that takes 6, 7, 8, 9 months to paint because it's so big. And you have to have somebody who knows how to mix the paints. You have to have somebody who knows all the paint colors. Like you might have 50 colors and I have to know all of them by name and number and the recipe that makes that color.
A lot of chemistry sounds like.
Yeah, it's crazy. And a lot of math. Like I don't know, all these kids' art is like the escape from all other things. I'm like, no, there's math. Like, I know like what materials stick to what surfaces, like all kinds of stuff. But that being said, most of my New York murals were not led by me. So it was like a stepping stone to my other projects. And so probably Pittsburgh would be the city that I would say, because most of those projects were led by me. And that was like a really big accomplishment. But I've also done murals in Detroit and I did a live paint mural in at Dreamville Fest the first year. Yeah.
Have you ever had a weird experience with law enforcement while doing street art?
Fortunately, not really. I know people who have, but I try to be very clear with organizations who hire me to get me some sort of lanyard or a badge or something that says I'm supposed to be there with my picture on it. And like, I need a sign that says artist at work. In Pittsburgh, we actually had one of the street murals I did. So it was at a bus stop. So they had to like shut the whole stop down, right? So that I could paint it. And so I was like, yeah, so who are we like notifying? Like, okay, we're going to tell the public, right? Like the people who catch the bus here need to know it's not stopping. But they actually informed like all the small businesses and they like had this newsletter go out and like my picture and all my information. And then they also had the city police, like do rounds basically to make sure that I was safe. So that was comforting because they would stop.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they would stop like every few hours and just check on me. You know, especially when you work on stuff that's like in a downtown area or anywhere like that. Like a lot of times there are like, you know, there might be homeless people or mentally ill people. And you have to know how to deal with that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's helpful to have law enforcement, and sometimes you're like, what's a different way I could approach this? Like, I went back and forth about like what type of people I needed to be there. Because you just have to know, like, people are going to shout things at you that they don't mean.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, people might be a little rowdy, like, you just, you know. So fortunately, I have not had a negative or weird experience with the law, but I've had weird experiences with other people, other pedestrians, skateboarders. They go right
That's
through
natural.
They go right through my shit.
So now that we're in the topic of the bus stop, can you tell us a little bit about how did that project come to be? What was the idea behind the project? Because I was reading that it was more so something about respect during COVID, or the concept was leaning towards that, if I remember correctly. But could you tell us a little bit about how did it all come about? Was it a competition that you kind of applied to? Was it a little bit about that whole entire process?
So,
and the amount of paint that you use, it'll be interesting to know, since it's math. We're all about math here. How much paint did you use for that?
That's such a weird question to ask.
Like, let me go look at my receipts. So that project, similar to a lot of other public art projects, there's like a public call for artists where you submit like basically your resume and cover letter, so to speak. Sometimes you submit like portfolio examples and tell people why you're interested in the project, that type of stuff. And so I did that, and then I was selected for an interview. This was a nationwide thing, but they selected like a couple of markets. So I think, obviously at that time, like my market was, I think it might have been for the county, like Allegheny County, for like a little bit more than just Pittsburgh, the city. Mm-hmm. And then they did something in like Atlanta and somewhere else. So yeah, I was selected as one of the artists who was granted an interview. And then I was able to talk about, you know, my previous work and things like that. And at that point I had done like maybe 2 or 3 other downtown specific projects, and 2 of them were COVID related already. So my idea was like, hey, I've already like curated some art downtown. I've already done some work around like social distancing, that kind of stuff. And I know what people respond to and how they react to it. And so like, let me expand on one of those ideas to do the bus stop. So one of my previous projects was the New Space Spheres. And I have to say that slowly because it's a tongue twister. I don't know why I named it that because it's so hard to say. But it was a series of like circles, like the social distance circles that you would see on the ground. But I hired like multiple artists to create different designs. And they were like funny and cheeky, but like also stay 6 feet away from me. So one of them was Respect the Space, which was my design. And it was like galaxy themed, and people really liked that one. So I ended up making that the theme of the bus stop, which was right around the corner from the other installation.
Got it.
So it was all about like, okay, the rules, you know, from the CDC, like the guidance keeps changing, everything's being updated, but one thing that should never change is the respect that you have for your neighbor, right? Like, you don't need to be all up in my face, regardless of if we're wearing a mask or not. You don't need to be standing right up behind me while we're waiting for the bus, regardless of COVID or not. Like, it was just those kinds of things. So that it was neutral in the sense of mask wearing and vaccination status and all of those things. And it was also just like really playful, which kind of also goes with that whimsical part, right? Like, it has a message, but I'm not yelling at people, telling them that they need to do something.
Got it.
So you need to respect each other. And the fun part about that project was kind of like the digital piece of it. I did multiple QR codes throughout the piece, and also 3M sponsored some material. So like some of the planets were like cutouts of like 3M that were reflective when the rain hits it and all this other stuff. And
It's
so
pretty cool.
I use QR codes so that people could have different experiences, like as they wait during their commute. So like you could listen to meditation music on YouTube, or you could watch a video about the project itself, or like time lapse footage, or you could view my Instagram. You could do different stuff like that. So yeah, it was cool. It was a fun one.
Awesome. I'm assuming that concept came from your PR background.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I was on QR codes
I
before they were cool.
see it. I see it. Pulling from prior experiences. I like it.
Yeah, like I always have my digital marketing brain on in the background of like my projects. Like, how can I expand this mural to be more than just what it is, right?
I like that.
So yeah, it's always a fun challenge for me to be able to do that.
Cool.
As far as how much paint, yeah, I don't know. I ended up using.
Not to be so surprised if you could answer that.
I ended up using some mixture of like traffic paint and outdoor exterior paint because it was like on the sidewalk and so many people were going to be walking on it. I wanted to make sure that like it stayed and also that it was the colors that I really wanted. I think, yeah, probably like between 10 and 15 gallons. It really wasn't that much. It was like, maybe it was like 400 square feet. And then I mixed a lot of the colors. Like I still have a lot of that paint, but it was less than you would probably imagine.
Got it. Okay. Cool. You're on mute, Dervin.
Thanks. So there's a lot happening with technology right now that I feel may impact creatives a lot if it hasn't already. How do you feel about what's going on with like the whole NFT space and things of those sorts, but also like AR and VR experiences? Coming from Tony and I, just to provide some context, we have big tech backgrounds. I was at Meta for a little bit, seen a lot happen with like augmented experiences and like street art. So I was curious, I guess, like what's your thoughts on that? Was once you mentioned the QR code, I was like, oh, that's fire. Like you're probably exploring that already.
Yeah. NFTs at this point is like a curse word to me. I don't know. No, here's the thing. Okay, so AR and VR, I worked within my PR agency when I was doing digital. AR and VR were like, I was trying to get all my clients to do it because I thought that there was so much opportunity for immersive experiences. And then actually for the bus stop, I tried to get this AR company to bite on it to do like basically a drop-in of me and like explaining the project to anybody who scanned like the space. It didn't end up happening. Maybe in the future it will. But I have always wanted to do that sort of experience along with my artwork. And I don't know if you guys have been to or heard of like the Van Gogh immersive experience. Have you guys gone to that or know anybody who went?
I've heard of it. I haven't had the pleasure of going just yet, but I've heard nothing but good things.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I think it's kind of like almost the future of like museums and galleries and like how to make your art live on beyond you and your life, right? Which is what living artists are always trying to figure out. Like, how do I make money now? And then what happens later?
Yeah.
So, yeah, on those two fronts, definitely interested. NFTs, when they first came out, I was like excited about it, but now I'm very much less excited. I think there perhaps is more risk and negative possibilities for like the artist than it was like intended for. Like the whole point of it was to help protect artists and make sure that we get a cut down the line, which is what the real art world should be, but it is not that way, right? So it was this outlet for us to have that opportunity, but now artists are like basically losing money in the space, or depending on how ethical your practice is as far as like what it takes to be part of the NFT community as far as the environment and other things like that, like you could not only be, you know, losing money, but you could be losing credibility in other spaces because you decided to participate in this thing. So
got it.
Very mixed emotions. I personally am not at this time interested in creating NFTs. I think I was in the beginning, but I kept being like, I need more like research. I need more information. Like, and every time I was like looking for that, I was like, I'm gonna hold off. And now I'm like, yeah, I think I'm okay. So I don't know if there's a way for us to like fix it in the future and in the physical art world, that would be amazing.
It's definitely a interesting take. I've definitely heard a lot of negatives about the NFT space in particular, with some artists having negative experiences. I've heard a lot of positives as well. I think NFTs aren't, or at least the underlying technology, the use case of it could be applied to a lot of things. I think art jumped on it first. And I think there were a lot of, like I said, pros to it, but because it's so early, you know, there's a lot going on with like people scamming folks. Unfortunately, that's like a Web3 thing with privacy and the addresses, but I think that will get fixed over time. But yeah, I could see why like you know, some folks might be reluctant to ruin their brand by jumping in and not having like the best showing, or I guess the best experience for people who purchase, or you know, invest to flip or invest to hold, or things of those sorts. So I've noticed with some collections, there's a lot of marketing that goes into it, and if the ones that are like the most transparent are typically the ones that are most successful. But some of the money I've seen some folks make has been ridiculous. Like 14-year-old kids, $400K on a collection in a couple hours. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think part of it too is, of course, the successful stories are going to go viral, right? Like, of course, that's what we're going to see. Like, we're going to see that 14-year-old kid. We're going to see the artist who made, you know, like I don't know, like $2 million in a week. Like, we're going to see all of that stuff, but you're going to see much less of like, oh my God, I paid all this money for me to even just be part of this community, and now I'm like shut out from everything. Like, nobody cares. They're like,
but when you say paid all the money to be part of the community, what do you mean?
There are certain platforms, kind of like the physical world. There are certain platforms you have to pay to like be part of, or to get approved, or like whatever the case is. Like, and so if you're putting multiple pieces out, right, thinking like, oh, I'm about to make this big return, and then like nobody buys it. Like, okay, well, who lost? You know? In the physical art world, it's similar, where you might get invited to like a really great show, right? But you have to pay your way there. Like, you have to pay for your booth, which might be a few grand. You have to pay for, you know, you have to pay to get there, your transportation, your lodging, like, and you're wondering if your piece is going to sell so that you can make your money back. So it's all an investment. It depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, definitely. Totally. Definitely an investment and a risk either way.
Yeah.
So I remember, you know, reading up on you and your background, and I remember you mentioning that, you know, as you were growing up as a kid in the Pittsburgh area, you felt there was a lack of like art, in like the communities and such, and you felt that when you went to New York, there was a lot more vibrant art and paintings and murals. Can you tell me about that as a kid growing up wanting to be an artist and how that impacted you and the driver for you to return from leave New York to come back to Pittsburgh and that mission that you're on today?
Yes. So I think as a kid, like you don't know what you don't have because you don't have it, right? So like Pittsburgh as an adult, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's too gray. We have too many, like, I mean, it's an industrial city. So like your part of you is like, oh my gosh, like, why don't we have more of X, Y, and Z? But there's a reason. That doesn't mean that it's the right call, but there's a reason. And so when I would like travel or when I moved to New York and I would see like just so much creative energy everywhere, I was like, man, like, that's what we need. We need that right there. So it was inspiring to me to be in a place where other people were actively and accessibly doing this type of work. Like I was like, oh, I can just like get hired by a mural organization. Oh, okay, let's do that. Like we didn't have that option in Pittsburgh, and we still don't. So I think that's one thing. And then as far as the drive to move back, I had left my full-time job in 2018. I stayed in New York all of that year into 2019. Essentially just doing murals and other art projects and commissions. And then I was getting phone calls like, hey, Pittsburgh needs some of that art that you keep doing in like Brooklyn and Harlem. Like, can you come do something here? I was like, look, you found a wall. I'm coming. So you just need to tell me where the project is. And then eventually I did get a call that was like, okay, we have the space that you wanted. We have the money that you need. Can you come do this project? And so that was the Home Court Advantage project that I ended up doing at the basketball court in Pittsburgh.
And that was the first basketball court in Pittsburgh, right? Something like that?
Yeah, that was the first art court that we had. So awesome. That was a big deal for me to do that. And I had pretty much planned everything remotely, like from New York. And then once I got back there to do that, there were a lot of things happening at one time. So let's see. That summer, I was going back and forth between Pittsburgh and New York. And part of that reason was to start finding the funding for the project. Then New York called me like, hey, we have a mural that we need you to install. Can you come help us for like a whole month? Like, we need you 30 days. Sure. I go back, I do that mural for 30 days. And literally the next day that like we were finished, I was at a coffee shop getting my life together. And I got the call that was like, hey, we found your money. Can you come do this? And I was like, oh my God. Went back to Pittsburgh, did the project. I had another conference to go to for what is now my permanent residency, which I didn't know at the time. And then I took the rest of the year off to travel. I was in Ghana. And then I came back in like mid-January 2020. Pandemic? Hello?
Just before the pandemic. I was about to say just before the pandemic.
And I was like, oh, I'm not going back to New York. That's dead. Like, I'm
Oh, that is so funny.
So,
Definitely
like,
a growth town.
Yeah, it wasn't like I planned really to do it that way. It's just like that's how it unfolded, and it made the most sense financially too. Because I didn't necessarily like have another New York project lined up. And then I think so. Yeah, I said mid-January. Then in February, I got my offer to do my full-time residency in Pittsburgh.
And that's at the museum, correct?
That is actually with Urban Kind Institute, which is a Black nonprofit. But I do also have now, I just started a residency at the Westmoreland Museum in Greensburg, which is like a mix of in-person and virtual programming. For UrbanCon, that's like, although I'm the artist in residence, it's what most people would look at as like a full-time job.
Ah,
Yeah, right. So like, okay, I'm permanent staff. Like, I'm kind of, if I had to put it in a way, I'd say like I'm kind of like in the communications department. So like my job is to communicate through art with them, and
got
so it's just a really fortunate situation, you know, benefits the whole nine, all the stuff that they tell you artists can't have.
it. So just in case our listeners don't really understand it, just to ask them probing questions. So are you given a quota where you have to have like 2 pieces per quarter? Is there any requirement to like amount of work that you
Nope.
create and produce? No. Awesome.
No, that's why it's a dream. It's a dream job. It's
I gotta
basically
tell my kids about this now then.
it's essentially like your creativity is on call. That's essentially. So like, okay, we have these different initiatives. How does art play a part? If we're going to do this community engagement program, what art piece do we bring to the table? Is it an activity? Is it, how we explain it? Is it an infographic? Is it a panel? Like, how does art play a part in communicating the same message that we're using in our marketing materials and X, Y, and Z? So yeah, it's like, it's that type of situation. Or like, hey, one of our coworkers wrote an essay or a story or a poem. Like, would you like to add a piece of art to it?
Got it. That's awesome. I mean, it sounds like the ideal job. And
Yeah,
I know you mentioned that. Yeah. So I know you had mentioned that you were in Africa. I think you said Ghana. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So Durbin and I, we've done a lot of traveling together, and we went to Cape Town together, and we felt that, when we landed, we felt our ancestry hit us. Like, we felt empowered beyond belief. How did that experience influence your art? Because I feel like, art there is very different. It's very colorful, it's vibrant. There's a lot of line details. So how did that influence your creativity? Did you do any type of artistic work there? Was it more leisure? Like, just want to get a sense.
It was definitely leisure because I had like the craziest, longest year ever, and so I went for the year of return. So I went in December and came back in January. So it was very much like my break. Like,
got it.
I'm not working. I'm here to be at the beach. But it really did like refill my cup, honestly. Like, I mean, anywhere where you're like around that many Black people, it's just like it's like you're getting a warm hug from the.
I agree.
Like
I agree with you.
So you're like, absolutely.
I know so many people that went for the year of the return, and I'm so upset I missed that.
Listen,
Me too.
so
Me too.
I was there, for the holiday. So like over New Year's, and my friends and I went to a New Year's party, and I promise you, it was just New York City, like dropped off in Ghana. Like, like I was like, I know 200 people here. This is ridiculous. But I think especially at like the music festivals and at like Afrochella, I was able to meet other artists or view their work at least. And it was just inspiring. And I think one of the things that I had written down was like, I saw so many things during that trip that resembled ideas that I had already had. And so it was kind of just like watering a seed, like going there, like, oh, like I'm on the right track. Like I was actually thinking about doing something like this. And here it is existing, maybe in a slightly different way, but it just shows you that like so many different things are possible and you can just be creative and be yourself. So yeah, I remember specifically like taking so many pictures with the art and how colorful, like you said, Tony, everything was. Like it was an exciting, rejuvenating trip. Yeah.
Awesome. So I have two questions and more like deeper questions. One is, what is it like being a Black female in the art industry? What are some of the challenges to get to that mainstream platform of exposure? And that $1 billion like income that your t-shirt kind of talks about too. And then the second question is, how is like African art, like pottery art, abstract art, how is that impacting the Western hemisphere, and is it being respected and getting the acknowledgement it needs today? Are your thoughts on that? You can answer in any order you want.
Well, the first one's a little bit easier, I think.
Okay. Okay.
I feel as a Black woman artist that I feel like I have a very unique perspective on things, and that's what makes my art what it is, and like the lens that it's through. But at the same time, something that can be challenging is like sharing who you are with whatever you consider mainstream. Like that might not be like, they're like, oh, Black Girl Magic series, but what about the non-little Black girls? And I'm like, well, that's the point.
Yeah.
Like it's, you know what I mean? Like, so when you say mainstream, it's like there are going to be people who have the money and they're at the top and they don't really see the value in like a Black audience, maybe. So even though I haven't necessarily I've had that experience maybe 1 or 2 times. Majority of people, they know what I make when they come to me, so they're happy to embrace that part. But there's a thing in the back of your mind that's like, oh, are they going to go for this? Right? Because it's so specific to my audience. Then there's also just knowing that some people, especially white men, might not take you seriously. And for me, fortunately and unfortunately, if I'm not wearing like makeup, I look like I'm 16. So they think I'm just some young little, like, oh, it's just some young little artist. She don't know what she's talking about. Not knowing my background and that I'm about this life. So
Got it.
You just gotta be on top of your game more than other people have to be.
Makes
so
sense.
That's definitely a challenge. Now your other question, I just had my other favorite hoodie on that says Black creatives influence the world. So absolutely,
absolutely they do.
Art, African art influences the Western side of things, but
absolutely,
when you think about how, I don't know that I could like pinpoint.
But do you? I guess to rephrase the question, do you feel that they're getting the correct accolades, like the acknowledgement? Yes, they influence it, but people might be taking their ideas and not giving them the credit. But do you think we're coming to a change now where people are getting the credit and the due respect that they need?
I don't think that. I don't necessarily think that people are getting the credit off that they deserve. I think that people are being challenged as far as their accountability for things now, though.
Okay.
Right. Like, off rip, you might not, like, even contemporary artists, like, we'll have people use pictures of our work or our murals and not get credit, like, in a newspaper. I just saw one of my artist followers was posting about this. Like, people will take pictures of our stuff and not give us credit, that kind of stuff. It goes by without question all the time. But, even like in Black Panther, when they're in the museum and they're like, oh, this is from so-and-so. He's like, is it though? Do you know where this piece actually came from? You stole it.
That's
It's
such
so
a
funny
powerful
that you
part.
say that.
Such a powerful part in the movie.
I feel like that every time I see a Picasso piece. I'm just looking at an African mask. I mean, he didn't give anyone credit. I think that happens a lot.
Like I said, I think it's at this point more that folks are speaking up as far as accountability, but a lot of people are not provoked. Like, you have to be provoked to give the credit. instead of just giving it because it's the right thing to do.
Got it. Okay.
On top of that, though, I do want to say it can be difficult sometimes for artists, like especially right now because there's social media and pictures are everywhere and websites and all this. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard the concept about music that like there's only so many notes in the world. Like eventually the same song like will be made again. We're not talking about sampling. We're talking about there's only so many ways you can put notes together, right? Like talk about math. How many ways? The same original thought, right? Like I could think of something and somebody across the world could also think of something and they might look really similar, but we've never seen each other's stuff. Like, so if you have a thought in your mind, like there's a good chance that somebody else also has that thought. And then we'll be fighting on the internet about who did it first. So you know what I'm saying? Like,
I get it. Mm-hmm.
That part is hard because you want to be making original things, but just because it looks like something that already exists doesn't mean it wasn't original.
I think that's actually why some artists took a liking to NFTs because of the proof of ownership and proof of authentication.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. That's part of it. Absolutely. That's a huge part of it. Yeah. There used to be a lot more, well, I won't say a lot more, but there was more protection as far as intellectual property around like an artist creating something visually. Like if you can prove that it was out in the world, you know, like once you make it, it's basically, it's copywritten without having to go through the actual physical process of it. But they actually changed that law a few years ago where that's like not the case anymore. Like you actually do have to, you know, go through the whole legal process to copyright things and whatever. But it's hard. That part of it is very, very difficult.
Gotcha.
Yeah. One thought that came to mind about kind of the chip on your shoulder that underrepresented creatives tend to have, and I guess the thought that jumped in my head was maybe if there was more, I guess, platforms or mediums for our community to engage with their audience. I feel like from an art perspective, it's not the same in terms of like scale and exposure that maybe other communities might have. There are, of course, you know, platforms on social media and stuff like that folks leverage for exposure and things of those sorts. But like, I guess the community could benefit from, how do I put, you know,
it's like black-owned business, like I'm trying
to think of the right word
business kind of thing, like app, like that Jay-Z was trying to come out with, but just for like black artists. You're talking about, right?
So yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to be an app, but something for the community exclusively. I feel like sometimes creatives, whether it's art or music, I think put too much pressure on ourselves to reach our audience on platforms that aren't ours anyway.
Yeah.
And I think if it was more of that, it might help us a bit. I might be overthinking as well, but
no, I think you have a good point. It's kind of like, well, I'll even say like you brought up Jay-Z, like the flip from flexing a Picasso to flexing a Basquiat. Like, if, you know, you get what I'm saying?
Good
like,
point.
Good
point.
Like, so much, like historically, so much success is tied to the whiteness, which is really the white audience in the masses, versus like, oh, I'm gonna just go do this thing that even though it's smaller, is for Black people, and you feel like you have to choose between the two.
Yeah,
and maybe you shouldn't have to.
Yeah,
I like that reference. That's a powerful reference. I like that one.
I agree. I don't think we should have to. Maybe make a note of that. It's something to work on, Tony.
Yeah. So on a lighter note, can you tell me a little bit about your most memorable piece of art, and then I guess street art? That's light. This is easy. This should be an easy
My
one.
most memorable piece of art?
Yeah, it could be something that we've never seen, but you can tell us about the concept or idea.
This is kind of like when people ask me what my favorite piece is. I'm like, do you have kids? Because imagine if someone asked you which one of your kids is your
I'll definitely have a favorite kid. I can tell you that right now.
No, but I'm gonna say something that maybe a lot of people who know me or follow me would not know. So one of my most memorable pieces was done in my mom's basement when I think I was turning 13.
Okay.
And so a lot of people do know that I'm a big sports fan. I was an athlete growing up, all that. And that was around the age where, like I was balling. I was the best point guard. I thought I was going to the WNBA, all that good stuff. So like for my birthday,
basketball player. Okay.
I had a jersey party. So like you had to wear a jersey to get in. Okay.
Okay.
So everybody's coming, rocking a different, you know what I'm saying?
So what jersey were you wearing then? What jersey did you have on?
Oh, I don't even know what I had on. I bet you know.
How you don't remember what jersey you had on and it was a jersey party?
I had a whole rack lined up of like all the.
Damn, bro, it's a 13th birthday party.
She make it sound was so important, so she had to remember. But no, now I'm a little worried.
But in the basement where our little like after party spot was, there was a wall, and I did this giant outline of a mural of like, I'm pretty sure it was just my name in like some like graffiti block letters and like a basketball in the background, and like I thought it was so cool, and some of my friends helped me paint it, and it was there for like some years unfinished. But it was very memorable because my friends were like, "Oh my god, your mom lets you like do
paint
this
the entire wall."
Like, and I think I've painted in her house. I probably painted 3 or 4 different walls in different rooms. So
that's pretty cool. Do you have any pictures of that memory or of that piece of art that you can like look back today or now?
I don't think so, but it's very vivid in my mind. But I don't think I have any photos of it.
Okay.
It would have been with like a real, camera. It would like we didn't have cell phones with cameras yet.
Got it.
So in terms of like street art, like murals and stuff like that, is there any place in particular that comes to mind that would be a very extreme but dope location for art? Like
I really want to do a mural in like a soccer field in Brazil. That's very specific.
That's dope though.
It's specific, but it is fire.
I'm trying to do that though. Yeah, so the piece that's behind me that you guys asked about, it's gone viral in Brazil multiple times for the same reasons, police brutality, but like probably a third of my social media following, they're from Brazil and they speak Portuguese. And I'm like, so when can I come do a show? When can I come put a mural somewhere? And, soccer is big everywhere else. And I feel like that would be the perfect spot for like some real colorful, amazing art.
So I'm going to be your PR person, and I'm going to figure this out how the 3 of us can go out there paid. We're going to just help you with the communication stuff. You'll do all the artwork, and we'll just have a great time out there.
This sounds like an excellent plan.
All right. I got this. This is on my agenda.
Yeah, definitely a dope place. I had a couple of teammates from Rio in college.
Word.
Awesome personalities. But I know I know a little Portuguese. It's curse words only, but I know.
Oh man!
What did you play? Soccer?
So I played a bunch of sports, but with them I played volleyball in college.
Oh wow!
Yeah, volleyball, beach volleyball, and indoor is big over there.
Volleyball too. Yep, exactly, yep. Absolutely. I played volleyball in high school, team captain, city champion.
Wow, so you were such the athlete. So basketball, volleyball, that's pretty impressive. That's awesome.
I played soccer for like 5 minutes. I was a goalie. I
5 minutes, I like it.
But that's really dope. Yeah, I only know a little bit of Portuguese as well, and it's only what I know is like from my followers. Like I know how to say thank you, and like that's pretty much it. It's pretty much thank you. That's pretty much anything about like artwork. I can probably butcher something up. There was a point in time where like one of my Brazilian followers, you know, we would like DM each other back and forth, and I would have him like translate my captions for me, or at least read them. Like I would translate them. I would do my best. And then I'd have him read it and be like, does this make sense? And he would consult with me before I post it so I didn't look stupid. They're very kind.
Google Translate is not always accurate, so it's a good thing that you had someone help you out with that.
Oh God, have you ever? That just came to me as well. Have you ever like partnered with any big tech companies on doing art?
Tech?
Yeah, like in the offices, and like Google and Facebook is big on that. I'm pretty sure. Facebook, they commission artists like local to the city where the office is.
Yeah.
Yes. So, well, the first thing I thought of when you said that, well, I think you guys know, I did the Black History Month logo for Yahoo.
Yep.
Not this year.
Saw that.
So that was one partnership. But how I got there was working with Verizon Media, and I did a merch collection with them. So those are probably the two main joints. I've done a mural where the Google campus is in Pittsburgh, but it was not commissioned by Google.
Got it. How did you get the Harley Davidson one?
That was through Dreamville Fest.
Ah.
Fire.
So it was Harley Davidson, it was Zing Zang, who else was there? And Bedlam Baca is who like hired me.
That's cool. That's awesome. All right. So last easy question. I think this should be an easy one.
That's what you said last time.
I guess this is just, you know, that it's not going to be super easy then. What would you say is the most memorable competition you've won? I know you mentioned that as a kid you did a lot of competitions, you would apply to them. Was there anyone from childhood to now that you were like most happy that you were able to win, or you got the opportunity to work on a project that comes to mind?
Wow. I'm gonna be honest. Okay, this is a 2-part answer, but like I am a very competitive person. But when
you're an athlete, so it makes sense.
Exactly. But when it comes to art, like I never really felt like I was in competition with people. It was like I do this thing, and this is the way that I do it, and like you like it or you don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I think the biggest mural that I've done so far is Pathway to Joy. And that's in Pittsburgh. That was downtown on Fort Duquesne Boulevard for the Three Rivers Arts Festival. Mm-hmm. And the way that process went was a little bit different. Usually, like I said, you kind of submit some stuff and then they go through it and then you're invited for like an interview, whatever. But they actually did an invitation only application. So I think I was like one of 5, and then you had to come up with a proposal, which they pay you to do, and then you pitch it, and then they pick somebody. And me knowing that was going to be, or had the potential to be, the biggest project that I had done, and like to have all these big names attached to it, like Dollar Bank and the Cultural Trust and whatever, I was so proud to win that. Like, I was so proud. And I think they did all the interviews, I think, in one day. And they called me the same day to tell me that I won. And I was like, I freaked out. I freaked out a little bit.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I think that would probably be the most memorable because the project itself was so amazing. Like I was so proud of the end result.
Cool.
So, is there anyone that you would love to collaborate with? And they don't have to be
That's a good
an
one.
artist, like a creative, like a celebrity, someone, I don't know. But anyone come to mind?
The first person I thought of as you were saying that was like Pharrell.
Dope.
That's dope.
Very dope.
Whoever, okay, listen, Tony, PR.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here for you.
Whoever wants to collab so I can make custom basketballs needs to step up to the plate.
Ooh, that would be so cool.
I don't care who it is. Like, it could be Spalding, it could be Wilson, it could be, I don't care. But somebody.
I like that.
People ask me about like shoe collaborations a lot, and like, I mean, Nike and Jordan are like easy for me to say, but people who work with artists really well are like Vans and Puma. They do a lot of cool stuff with visual artists, so they're at the top of my list. I talked my mom into doing a collaboration. She's like not an artist at all, but mommy-daughter collaboration during my new residency.
Okay.
Those are my top picks right now. Yeah.
I mean, those are great picks. I like that. Those are great picks. Solid.
I've got I've got I'm gonna play devil's advocate here and ask, say 4 Web3 developers reach out to you and say they love your artwork. You know, they've worked out a way from a smart contract perspective to alleviate your concerns in the NFT space on the blockchain and would love for you to be an artist in their collection. Would you consider it?
Me, you can consider anything. I don't mean I gotta do it.
I mean, she is so political, but that's the response. Oh, it's smart. I like that.
Yeah, I'll
That's a good
consider.
one.
I'll consider.
I like
Yeah.
that. I
Like
like
how you're careful with your words there.
that. So this will be my last question. I don't know if you have anything after this, but with art, it's all about it's about what you're trying to portray to your audience and how they receive it, either positive, negative. How do you deal with the feedback? I'm assuming some people love the art piece behind you and some people hated it. So like, how do you create a mental space where those negative responses or the self-doubt or maybe not lack of confidence, but the unsurety creeps in? Like, how do you deal with that?
I think he's asking, how do you block out the noise?
Not really that, but more so like it's art. Like, people have an opinion all the time, but I guess that too. But how do you deal with like the negative responses to like your art?
Your art is not supposed to be for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't like it, you can move on, and that's okay. I do not feel a responsibility for everybody to like my work.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I do feel a responsibility for the people who pay me to like my work. But then again, like I said before, you should know what type of work I do before you pay me. My responsibility is more so to the community and telling whatever story that is. And a lot of times, like you mentioned the piece behind me, it's not that you don't like my work. It's that you don't like Black people. Like,
Keep it real.
You get what I'm saying?
Facts.
Like, you don't
I get
like
it.
the story that is being told. And if the story is true, and I'm telling the truth, I can't really be that concerned about how you feel.
I like that response.
Sometimes, I really just try not to look at like negative comments, or like I'll delete them if they're on Instagram or something like that. But I remember one time my fiance was showing me like one of my pieces made it to like Reddit. Oh God, that's like the place for people to talk trash.
A lot of internet gangsters on Reddit.
My man said internet gangsters like it.
Twitter fingers is Reddit fingers, okay?
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, but he had seen some comments on there, and I was like, that's Reddit? Please don't show me. I don't care. I don't need to stress myself out. Yeah, there is. Did you guys watch Kanye's documentary?
No, I'm waiting for it to be completely finished so I could binge it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Okay, so you remember, speaking of Pharrell, because he's one of my faves, do you remember the part, Durbin, where he said, you're going to blow up and you're going to get to the point where everybody's telling you how great you are, but still doubt yourself?
Yeah. In the studio.
That's how I feel. Like, I think it's okay to, that imposter syndrome does creep through sometimes, but I try to channel it to like, okay, that just means you need to challenge yourself to be like the best that you can, like whatever the best thing you can put out is, that's what you got to put out. What are you challenging yourself to do that's different and scary for you to even have this feeling?
I like that.
So imposter syndrome is definitely something that gets to me at times, and I've never thought to like spin it that way and kind of train my brain or I guess trick my brain for my benefit. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome.
I like that.
Man, so I was just about to ask, how you go about blocking out the noise, but Tony essentially asked the question, and you gave great advice. But I guess to end off, aside from that, what advice can you give to any aspiring artists right now, looking to get exposure or get out of their city, like
first, don't be scared. Second, don't let anybody make you feel like you're not an artist because you work more than one job. Like, you can have a full-time 9-to-5 and still be an artist. It doesn't have to be that you do art full-time. That's not everybody's journey.
That's a great point. I like that you mentioned that. That's a great point.
That's not everybody's journey. It's not. And you never know like how many connections you can make at whatever that corporate setting you're in is. Or it doesn't have to be corporate. Wherever you are, like, you have no idea how many connections you could make. You could be an Uber driver, right? And like, you just talk to people about your work, and you never know who you're going to meet doing something like that. Just push yourself, network. I tell people all the time, especially young people, use the process of elimination. Try a whole lot of things, and if it's something you don't like or it didn't work, take it off the list and move to the next thing. And that's one of the best ways to figure out what you enjoy and what you like to make. And that would probably be my last piece of advice. Make things you want to make. Stop making stuff for everybody else.
Cool.
No more celebrity portraits. Make what you want to make.
I like that. So
we need to put that on a shirt.
No more celebrity portraits.
Yes,
that one too. But
yeah.
Make what you want to make.
Not what Instagram wants you to make, not what TikTok wants you to make. Make what you want to make.
Mm-hmm.
So how can our followers follow you, get up to date on all your projects? What's coming out? Anything exciting that we should keep an eye out that's coming out soon?
All things exciting will always be on my Instagram. That's where I'm most active. At jy.originals is my Instagram.
Love it.
I also do have a newsletter. It's quarterly. I promise I don't spam because I don't have the time. So sign up for that. You can find that on my Instagram, on my link tree. And exciting stuff. I mean, I'm at the Westmoreland Museum for the next 6 months, and I'll be working on some things there. It's not production focused. Like I don't have to like come up with work while I'm there, but I plan to have at least a couple of public art projects to do. So you can definitely look out for that. And look out for what else? My YouTube channel. I try to upload some stuff. So the next video that I'll be uploading is like me unpacking and getting settled at my studio at the museum.
Awesome.
Well, it was certainly a pleasure having you on the show. Definitely looking forward to catching more art. And I made a note to, do my best to change your perspective on NFTs a bit.
Listen, I don't want to be like the bad guy NFT hater, because it's not that. Like I really think it's a great opportunity. If you can manage the risks, I really do. Like it really can. And if like your conscious can handle it, like I think that's where I'm at right now. If somebody can help me manage the conscious part, then maybe we can find a way.
Got it. Okay. But it was definitely a pleasure. Definitely a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me. And doing so much research, like I feel amazing. Like thank you.
I mean, you're a superstar now. It's easy to find research. It's out there. It's out there, so it's easy. You pop up first on Google search, so that's good. That's good. There was no confusion who I was Googling, so that's big time. That is big time. So congrats to all the hard work, man. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you.